AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. The bus driver turned dictator in Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, wins, scare quotes, third term, apparently. Even though the exit polling had the opposition candidate winning by a relatively big margin, but it turned out that when the ballots were counted,
I mean,
everything needs to be in quotations with respect to this election, of course. Maduro got a little over 51% of the vote to Gonzalez's 44%, is what I last saw. And the question is, what, if anything, is going to be done about what transpired there, starting with by the people of Venezuela, who, of course, were protesting in the streets outside the presidential palace. And I also saw reporting of military and police firing upon the protesters. So trying to get a handle on what's happening in Caracas and the country writ large. Pleased to be joined by Juan Villasmil, who is Intercollegiate Studies Institute editorial fellow at the Spectator World. Juan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you guys for having me.
So, provide us with your perspective and what you understand to be the situation on the ground there as we speak.
Yeah, so I'm JP. I grew up in Venezuela for the first 16 years of my life, actually. When I was 14, I actually spoke at a protest. That time around, it was when the government, denied a democratic referendum. And I spoke next to Maria Corina Machado, who is now the face of the opposition. And Mundo Gonzalez, who's the candidate that won against Maduro, according to the actual results, he's basically the face of Maria Corina Machado. And if I were to summarize entirely what has happened in the last 20 years, is that we had a lot of moderate left-wingers, democratic socialists run against Maduro, because they thought that a very strong, stark moral political contrast would not succeed with the social conditions in Venezuela. But what Maria Corina Machado has demonstrated is that it did work. Maria Corina Machado has united the opposition in ways that were previously unseen. She's not an overtly negotiation-minded politician. Traditionally, when there's some type of fraud, when anything happens with Maduro, the opposition tends to sit down and try to reach a middle ground. Maria Corina, on the other hand, is saying there was fraud. We won in every single state by 30%. It's impossible for Maduro to win by the 10% margin he claims to have won. Well, I think it's 7% margin he claims they won by. That did not happen. And in the next days, we're going to see what this becomes. But the international pressure is on. And a lot of people, even left-wingers throughout Latin America, are taking a stand against Maduro, especially the Chilean president, Gabriel Boric, who's been a real ally of the Venezuelan people. So Congress to him for that.
I saw that Milei in Argentina took a pretty strong position, much stronger than, say, the Biden administration did, which is the typical sort of we have concerns and we're going to look into it and talk to our friends and so forth and see what happens. So sort of dipping their toe in the water. But I mean, just how much international pressure is really being ginned up, and what would it take to depose Maduro? I mean, I don't think it can come from the outside. It's got to come from the military and the people, right?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Before I answer, since you mentioned Milei, it's incredible the work Milei is doing.
Yeah.
Months before the election even became a thing, the Maduro government has been trying to jail Maria Corina's inner circle. Actually, they've tried to jail half of them. So her international relations person, her campaign director, her domestic, every single person that had a high-level position in their campaign is living inside the Argentinian embassy in Caracas. And if you're an American and you're hearing this, remember, that used to be a role the U.S. had. The U.S. used to be the country that would tell people in countries like Venezuela, if you need to go to a safe place, come to our embassy. And it does say something about this, the standing of America. And I don't like this moralistic talking about the standing of America, but in this case, it does apply. That the opposition went to Argentina and not to the U.S. embassy. It is kind of sad. But yeah, in regards to international pressure, of course, getting rid of Maduro is a really complicated task, and I'm not exactly optimistic as someone who has talked to dozens of people on the ground, and as someone who has seen previously optimism often lead to nothing. What we do need is international pressure, and I'm not sure the Biden administration is ready to do that. The reality is that they've been really soft in regards to Venezuela. The reason why Maduro is just waving it around and just doing whatever he wants is because the Biden administration relieved sanctions, and they told him, we will relieve sanctions if you become a democracy. And you know what Maduro did? Maduro did, okay. And he turned around, and he's threatening to annex Guyana. He's weaponizing migration. He's not letting Biden deport gang members and illegal aliens that come to the U.S. back to Venezuela. And he's jailing the opposition. He's doing all these things, and Biden has still not put the sanctions back. So what's going on?
Well, is there truth? I mean, people keep saying that they're Venezuelan, that the President Maduro emptied the jails and sent those illegals to the United States. Do you know anything about that?
That's definitely true. Of course, the overtly personalist language might not necessarily be it's not like Maduro personally did all these things, but Maduro has let crime get out of control, and he's let gangs take control of prisons and done nothing about it. So one of the gangs that has a presence in New York especially, and throughout the U.S. in its major cities, is El Tren de Aragua. El Tren de Aragua is now one of the fastest growing gangs in Latin America. Imagine MS-13, which every American has heard about, but in Venezuela. They took control of a prison called Tocorón in Venezuela. And for 20 years, the government did nothing about it. Just for context, imagine a bunch of criminals take over some jail in Chicago, and the government does nothing about it. And they take control of it, and then they build a club in the jail. They have a restaurant, a pool. They have everything.
It's Pablo Escobar Redux, right? Pablo Escobar jail in Colombia Redux. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So the government let that happen. And those are the same gang members that are now probably instructed by some other actors, although I don't have all the facts. No one has the facts. They're really secretive. They're really secretive about everything. I'm not going to dive into this, but in regard to China, 50% of the deal terms between Venezuela and China are unknown. No one knows what they're dealing in. But we know that they have $2 trillion worth of minerals. We know that Venezuela has the largest military presence from Russia since the Cuban Missile Crisis in the island of La Ortila. There's so many things going on in Venezuela. And if the American audience is listening right now, I would tell you, standing against Venezuela, not invading, I'm not against invading, but putting some pressure is in America's interest, because Iran, China, and Russia love Maduro. They adore him. It's their best ally in the hemisphere.
What is going on exactly with military and police with respect to protesters? As I mentioned at the outset, there's reporting of police and or military opening fire on protesters. Have there been injuries, deaths? What is happening?
Yes, so I've been talking to a lot of my friends, especially in Caracas, and there's been a lot of shots fired. I've heard about at least 3 people that have been they died. And a couple have been shot, but there's no official numbers yet. Well, of course, we're not going to have official numbers, but I haven't seen any published numbers, especially by the NGOs there. I know Foro Penal, which translates to the Penal Forum, normally publishes numbers of this nature, but I haven't seen anything from them. But another interesting thing, another number that I haven't been able to fully capture has been the amount of Chavez statues tore down.
Yeah.
I actually wrote an article this morning. There's been more than 20 to my count in every single city in Venezuela. They're tearing down Chavez statues in what seems like a citizen-enforced Chavez-nification process. And at least that, it's good to see. They're tearing down this socialist leader that in the eyes of college Marxists in the U.S. is somehow a good man, but the poorest of the poor in Venezuela are fed up, and they don't want Chavismo pushed down their throats. They're tired of it, and things might get ugly, but hopefully better in the long run.
Yeah. Well, no, you're right. That is a positive sign. Juan Villasmil, he's Intercollegiate Studies Institute editorial fellow at the Spectator World. Juan, thanks for joining us with your perspective. Obviously, good luck to you and, more importantly, your friends and family and loved ones still down in Venezuela.
Of course. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, thank you. We'd love to have you back. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. Your business and your money are in good hands with Signature Bank.